He's gonna die. He's gonna fight me. He's something like me. He thinks he's awesome.
Hey everybody, this is the Undead Viking. I want to talk to you about this game. It's called Sabotile, The Islands of Hexote. This is a game of, well, this game is a very conflict-driven game, which I don't mind at all. This is a game where each player is going to be playing the role of a spirit animal of a village that, at one point, there were these 7 gods. And these 7 gods, 6 of them lived harmoniously with one another, and they managed to like nurture this society and make it great. And each had their own little quirks and charms. Each one had a little spirit animal that followed along with them. However, there was a 7th god, a 7th sibling, that fell into disfavor. Like, it didn't have any people that the other its older brothers and sisters didn't care for it much or didn't pay it much attention. And it didn't get worshipped like everything else. And so, like, when the other gods left the world and moved on, the 7th one stayed there and cursed the land. And it removed all of the power of those gods, their totems, and placed them in this haunted temple in the middle of the board. And then so it basically has cursed the land to have all these traps and powers and things that can waylay the players as they are trying to, as the spirit animal, leave their village, head into the middle of the board, get their spirit totem, which has been hidden from them, and then return it back to their village and be triumphant. And you're trying to be the very first spirit animal to pull that off. Now, along the way, you're going to deal with, like, as I said, all these different tiles, these like parts of this world, these hexes of land that are going to have these different powers and different abilities that are going to mess with you. And the thing is that because of the fact that you still have some power because of this, you are the spirit animal of this god, you yourself have the power over some of these tiles, and you're going to place some of these tiles on the board and create the land as well. And as those tiles are discovered and released, the energy and the activation of the spell and whatever gets released and affects whoever is on the tile that lands on top of it. Now, the game, as I said, has this wonderful fantasy theme, but at its root, it is very much just a secret knowledge game. You're going to be placing tiles on the board that hopefully then will help you if you can land on them, but also placing tiles on the board that will hurt your opponent if they land on them. Because ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to slow everybody else down, trying to keep them off kilter, off base, and you're trying to race forward, grab your totem, and get back to your village. Now, it sounds easy, but once I show you how the game is played and how it's set up and everything like that, you're going to realize that it is much, much more complex than you would think. So, let me show you how to play Sabotile, the Islands of Hexote, and then we'll come back here and I'll talk to you more about why I have been digging this game. Alright, cool. Alright, this is a game of Sabotile that I have set up for 6 players. Now, when you begin the game, it isn't going to look like this. I didn't want you to have to sit through the entire process of setting up the game. But what happens is that each person that plays has a deck of these cool tiles. And you can see these are nice, thick, chunky little tiles. They have these 3 little spots on the top, make them look kind of like a cube. But on the backs, they're going to have these symbols on there. And these happen to be the purple tiles. You can tell by the purple border along the sides. Now, I've already gone ahead and placed all those, and what happens when the game begins is that each person has the exact same set of tiles, and you know what they are, and you're going to start placing them on the board one by one. Starting, you determine who the first player is, and then you kind of go in counterclockwise order from the leader. So other people get to place their tiles first for the person that gets to go first. And so as you place these tiles, what you're trying to do is you're trying to either set up tiles that have good effects for you that will eventually lead you into the middle of this of the map here, where you can, this is the temple where your totems are being held. Now, of course, you don't know which of these totems is yours. More about that in just a moment. But you're trying to make a good path for yourself to get there, grab your totem, hopefully your totem, figure out what that totem is, whether it's good or bad for you, and then get back to your temple. Now, the thing is that your temple are these cool little tiles. Like, here's the purple temple, and you can tell it's obviously purple. The thing is that you don't put your temple down until you've gone ahead and created the path. So, like, the temple is the last thing to be placed down. So you might end up with people's temples right next to each other, kind of like with blue and yellow over here. or spread out far, like you kind of see. And then there's like an entire side of the board over here that there are no temples. Now the thing is that when you're placing your tiles, there's also tiles that are traps. They're like little swamps that you can bog people down. There's like an explosion tile that'll destroy the tiles around it and the tile that you're on and send the person that experiences that back to their home spot, things like that. Those are like traps that you can place where you think the players are going to be heading towards the middle for as well. And so you're kind of making people, you know, kind of bluffing, counter bluffing. What are they going to do? What's going to happen if they use that tile? And of course, having memory to remember exactly where you put those tiles of your own and your opponents where they put their tiles and so on and so forth is part of the game as well. Now you do that until you have 3 tiles left. Everybody starts with 3 tiles in their hand, so to speak, like a hand of cards, but instead you have a hand of tiles. And then you're ready to begin the game. Now the game is quite simple. All you're doing is you're going to be rolling a die on your turn, and that tells you how many spaces you get to move. Now, as I said, each one of these tiles has like this little cube, and it kind of looks like a, you know, like I said, a cube. But what you're doing is each one of these is a spot that you walk on. And so when you, like I said, I rolled a 3, like you're rolling 3, you'd go, like you'd have to actually have a side match up. So what you could do in this situation is you could go like 1, 2, 3, and you'd end up in that particular tile. You could go 1, 2, 3, and you could go to there. Things like that. You can, you know, and you're trying, as I said, to get to the middle. Now, the trick is once you end up on a tile, you activate the tile at that point. And when you activate the tile, what you do is you're going to take that tile, you're going to turn it over, and you're going to show everybody what that tile is. And then you're going to reveal what the action is on that particular tile. And like this one, which I placed on purpose right in front, because you know it has the purple outline, it says survey the land. So I can view any 2 tiles on the board, and I can replace any 2 of those with 2 tiles from 2 tiles of our hand. So you do exactly that. So I won't go through the process, but like you could probably like, oh, are there any traps here? You know, you look and see if there's any traps there. If there are, then you could like go through the tiles in your hand and determine whether or not you wanted to replace those particular tiles. Now, after you've done that and you're on that spot, you can't leave that tile as is. So what you have to do is you actually then remove that tile from the board. You don't do this with all the tiles. I'll explain that in just a moment. And then you have like your like extra tiles over here, and you're taking one and you, without looking at it, you place it back down on the board. And now when you place it back down on the board, you can position yourself in any of the spots on there that you think that you want to be. So you can go like that, and you're good to go. And then the next person would go and they do the same thing. And they'd have a path and they'd activate their tiles and they go through the process just like you did in that exact same order. Now, here's the trick, is that on your turn, you actually get to take one action as well. Now the actions are fairly varied, but they have mostly to do with adjusting the board as you see fit. Now one of the things you can do is you can take a tile that hasn't been revealed yet. You can take any one tile off the board and put it in your hand. So you can say, you know what, I'm going to take this tile right there as your action. And you go ahead and you take it, you can look and see what it is, and then you can go ahead and place it within your tiles that you have in your hand. Then, but notice how you can't place a tile. However, that is an action as well. You could take a tile that's in your hand and place it on your turn. That's an action as well. You can, if you are in a spot with one of these totems, which is, remember, that's what you're trying to get. If you're in a spot that has a totem, you can then take the totem. Now, the whole thing is that you might be asking, well, how do I know if the totem that I'm taking is the one that I want? Well, that's the trick. There are tiles on the board. There's tiles called Ancient Wisdom. I'll explain that in just a little bit. That will allow you to look at that. Otherwise, you have to get all the way back to a village. These are the villages that you have. Any village will do. And because the game has the abilities to swap tiles and things like that, you can actually have villages get swapped closer to the middle or off to the sides, things like that. And that's a perfectly valid move, because remember, you have to return your totem to your village. Well, you could be running back to your village and then somebody swaps your village and places it all the way on the other side of the board. And so then you have to make your way all the way back over. That's kind of the fun of the game. So, but once you get back either to a village, not necessarily yours, or to somebody to have an ancient wisdom tile that you land on, you get to do this really cool thing. Now this is something I just love. This whole game, just tactically, or a tactile, I feel the feel of it, the look of it, the innovation of the pieces. This has this little like scroll in here, right? And so then you take this and you pull it off and you reveal, and no, it's not the purple one. So like if you'd made it all the way back with this one, you realize you have Green's totem, but you don't have to tell anybody that. You then put it back on there and you put it back in your piece. You just tell everybody, well, I didn't win, but here's the deal. You can drop a totem off anywhere you want without taking an action on your turn. So like let's say you rolled a 6 or whatever, and you're like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm gonna drop the totem there. And then you like go to 6 or whatever. And so you can leave it behind, and so like you will theoretically then the other player has to come and chase it down. Now, what if, you might be asking, if you're just holding on to somebody's totem and they're pretty sure you have it? Like let's say I'm just racing around the board, right? And Green is pretty sure that I have the totem. If they can catch up to you, you can do an action which is called Steal the Totem, and basically it's a die roll. The person that's attacking to try to steal the totem rolls a die. Ooh, they got a 6. I roll defense, a 3. I lose. Ties actually go to the attacker, so after that attacker rolled a 6, I probably shouldn't even bother rolling. So you go ahead and you give them the totem. Now, in this situation, obviously he can't look at it until he gets to either a village or an ancient wisdom tile. But, you know, if he's got a pretty good idea that I've got his totem, then he can track me down and take it. So you can't just hold on to it forever. So that's it. Those are the 4 actions you can do along with your movement. You can take a tile, you can place a tile, you can pick up a totem, or you can try to steal a totem if you're on the same spot as somebody else that has one. Now, however, let's go over what kind of what the other tiles do. So, just quickly looking here, like all the tiles have different actions that are important. Like a terraform tile, take and view 3 tiles from the deck and then place them anywhere on the board. So that's pretty simple. You're just going to take 3 tiles and put them on the board. Notice you can't put anything on the temple space. The temple space is free and clear. You can't do anything with that. You can't adjust it, can't change it, can't do anything with that. However, I actually just realized something. If you are in the center of the temple, you can do 2 things. You can sacrifice one of a tile that you have in your hand, and there's a max. I should mention there's a maximum of 5 tiles you can have in your hand at one time. But if you're on the temple space, you can sacrifice a tile. If you sacrifice a tile, meaning you just discard it, you can get an extra movement phase, so you can roll twice basically with a die roll, so you can move extra fast out of that spot. Otherwise, you can accept a gift from the gods and just get 2 tiles from the deck. Draw them straight from the deck if you're in the center of the board. And that's free. That isn't an action. You just can do that if you're in the center of the board, in the center of the temple. Alright, let's look at some of the other tiles. So like the bog, it's a trap basically. The bog is important because after you reveal a bog tile, you do not remove it from the board. You don't swap it out. It stays there. It kind of mires up the spot, and it is like -2 to movement. So it takes movement to get into it, and it takes movement to get out as well. The holy ground is a very important tile. It is permanent. Once it's there, it can't be moved. It can't be destroyed. You can't do anything to it, and nobody can do anything to you on that spot. You can't have your tile stolen from you. Nobody can steal from you. You just can't be affected on that spot. That's like what it is. It's holy ground. Mystical exchange. Swap any 2 players' locations. So like that's pretty simple. If like you can just say, it's like it doesn't have to be you. So if blue found one, it doesn't have to be blue. He could swap blue and purple if he wanted to. It doesn't have to be blue, but very often it is going to be the person that has it. Survey the land. We already talked about that one. But secret passage is important. The secret passage, if you have the first one and there's no other secret passages that are showing up, you can take the secret passage to the middle of the board. However, if you have a secret passage on 2 separate spots, you can also go to the other secret passages as well as the center of the board. So it's kind of an important thing, especially the more secret passages that get shown. Wildfire is a tile that will destroy all of the tile and all the tiles that are around it. And then you will go ahead and just blow those up. And they can chain reactions with other wildfires as well that they reveal. So it can be multiple ones. They won't destroy holy ground though. Remember that holy ground is impenetrable. And like if you're on a holy ground tile, you can't be moved or anything like that as well. Adrenaline, you roll extra dice for movement. You can activate right away, so it just basically gets you moving faster. Earth Mover is an awesome tile. You select a tile or a base, and then you roll a dice and you move it through open space. So if you have something where like you want to like move your temple, like you got Earth Mover and you rolled, you could move your temple 4 spaces, but it can't move through anything that's like, it can't, you know, it has to go like 1, 2, 3, 4. But then the temple, you know, theoretically is closer to me. If I can manage to get my totem, I can get it back there quicker. Trickster, you swap any 2 totems, but remember, it can't be on holy ground, but any 2 totems, and it can be totems that can be carried, and it can be totems that are just sitting on the board somewhere. And then finally, Ancient Wisdom, you can view any totem. It can be a totem somebody's holding onto that's racing back to their base, and you can look at it. And then that's where kind of like a lot of the fun comes in the game, is the lies. So like, let's say, you know, like, here, I don't even know which one is purple here. I didn't even check. So here's purple. I picked it red. So let's say I'm racing back to my temple right there, and blue or yellow or whoever happens to get the Trickster, and I'm going to look, Ancient Wisdom, and I'm going to look at that totem. So he takes the totem, he looks at me, he's like, oh, fool's errand, boy. You got the red totem. You're not going to be able to win with that. So now what do? Do I believe him? Do I head back there? Do I reveal it? Do I check it? Or do I trust him and drop it off and go look for another one? So it's like you can mess with people's heads, and not only are you like messing with them directly, but this is a game of open negotiation, open conversation, and purposely messing with each other as far as just their inclinations, as well as the mechanisms of the game as well. So there you go. The game lasts until one person basically succeeds. They get their totem back to their village, wherever it might be, and then they reveal it when they're there, and they realize that they've won the game. Until then, though, it is totally a free-for-all. Now, you can play it like this with Secret Knowledge. There is also actually an alternative where all the tiles are open knowledge, and so you can play it, you know, flip the other way, in which case then like it's obviously becomes a more tactical game. And I played that a couple times, and I like them both. I like the Secret Knowledge, but also when like you've had the tiles that are revealed, it is more of a strategy game at that point, instead of hidden information kind of screw your neighbor backstabby type of game, if you will. But both games are really fun. If you do get a chance to check this one out and play it, I suggest trying it both ways, because they're both a great deal of fun. And I have found that the more players you have, the better it is. However, a 2-player game is like very strange. It's very cool because of the fact that you are only dealing with, you don't have to remember as much, obviously, because the tiles, you don't have as much chaos. So once again, the game becomes a little bit more strategic. But I think with the more, if you like a chaotic game, obviously the more players the better, and I do like chaotic games. But anyway, regardless, that is how you play the game. Let me talk more about why I've been having a lot of fun with this one in my conclusion. Thank you very much for sitting through the gameplay portion of the video. I do appreciate you doing that. Before I step into like what I like as far as the mechanisms of the game and the way the game is played and how much I enjoy that, I just want to talk just a little bit about just like kind of the design choices as far as the game goes, and as far as like what they did as far as with this prototype that I was sent, that my understanding is going to be very, very much like what the game is going to be, what it's going to look like once it is published. Now, I mean, just there are some games that like you don't have to have super cool components or anything like that. You don't have to have things that like make things pop for them to be enjoyable. And this game didn't have to have things that popped for me to enjoy it. I love the whole process of screwing my friends over by putting little bombs or things that could waylay them in the way. There's nothing better than, as you know, somebody who's just racing back to their village, and you play that perfect tile, and you manage to like, you know, pull the rug out from underneath them just as they thought that like victory was like inches within their grasp. Things like that, they add to the enjoyment of the game for me. This is like a very, very social game. It's a very, very interactive game, and I love that about it. But I mean, the fact of the matter is that there are things about this game that are just fun. They're just fun to hold. They're fun to play with. They're fun to mess with. I play poker a lot, you know, and I play with poker chips a lot. And these tiles, these cool, giant, thick, fun tiles to play with, to hold, to place on the table, to flip them over, to hear them clack together, things like that. Now, I don't know exactly, I mean, I do know that they probably won't be just like this because this is like a prototype, but I do know that they're going with thicker chipboard for these tiles, and I just imagine that they're going to feel like this. They're going to feel like there's substance there when you're putting those together. And then the fact of the matter is that you have like the same thing going on with like these chunky tiles that are going to be your villages. They have like a nice look to them. They have a nice bright color. And like as I said, once again, this is where they're going. This is a prototype, but this is how they're going. And then your little spirit animal guys, it's like, yeah, okay, there's these cool little palms and you're moving around the table. But the fact of the matter is that you have these totems and they just fit in there perfectly. So it's just kind of like this little carrying case. Now, once again, this could have been something where like you could have had just a cardboard tile, and then you put the cardboard tile in front of you, and then when you reach out, you flip it over to show what tile you have and look at it then. But no, because of the fact that you're actually carrying this little cool little urn, and you have it in there. And then finally, like the whole process of, like the reveal, when you're like lifting it and you're like, okay, let's see, did I get the right one? And it's either like, yeah, or when you win, it's like, yeah, I got it, or if it isn't, and the fact that it is most of the time you're gonna be looking at this usually before you actually make it back to your temple. And the thing is you're trying to keep a straight face, and you're like, and then you put it back in there, and now becomes the game beyond the game of like, oh, is he heading back to his temple or whatever? Is he going back? Things like that. They're interesting. Now, there's two things I forgot to mention as far as when I was playing the rules. I apologize that when you roll the die for your movement, or multiple dice, depending upon like different tiles or different extra movement dice, things like that, you don't have to move the full amount of your movement. You don't. That's just that isn't something you have to do. You can stop earlier. So you like if you placed like a bomb or something on a tile, and like if you moved on to that, you'd be bad. You don't have to do that. You can stop prior to that. Secondly, one of the cool things you can do is that if you are like if you go to somebody else's village and you drop off a totem on somebody else's village like that, they can't win until they kick the other totem off of their village. So they actually have to get there, drop their totem off, pick that totem up, move it off the thing. So that's a perfect strategy. If you know somebody's racing back to their table, back to their temple, or village, I should say, if you can get another totem sitting on their village to kind of block their ability to win the game, it's a great strategy, and it works, and it's very infuriating. Let me tell you, if that's how they've stopped you as well, because it's a laborious process to get that thing off of there so you can actually do something. But just a couple things I forgot to mention. Now, as I've said, obviously, I enjoy games that are conflict-driven, that have interaction, that have me directly messing with people. Now, I like games as well that I can just do strategy games or whatever that aren't conflict-driven. I can play those and I can have a lot of fun with them. But this is the type of game. These are the types of games that I was brought up with. I was brought up with messing with people, to win the game. This is a game where you are crawling over your opponents to try to win, and like it has to be a situation where you have to have like kind of like a nice, like a little bit of luck, a little bit of strategy, and a little bit of subterfuge to pull off the win. And it's just one of those things where, and I personally feel that when you win a game, when you are like actively shoving people down to step on them to claim victory, I find those victories to be much more satisfying in some ways. I don't know, some deep, I try not to be, I can lose a game and still have fun, but if I win a game, I definitely have fun. And it's one of those things where it's like, and if I won a game because not only did I play the game better, but I also managed to kick you down a few pegs as well. Well, that's just enjoyable to me, and it isn't because my friends and I don't like each other. We love each other. I've had the same gaming group for years, and it's all in good fun. But those are the types of victories, those are the types of wins and losses that we talk about weeks later, years later. And this is one of those games that if I had this game when I was a teenager, we would be talking about our gameplay experiences with this game. Because we would have played it constantly and over big giant handfuls of pretzels and Mountain Dew, laughing our butts off while we played it in my parents' basement. So I love this game. It's just, like I said, it feels fun to play with. It is fun to play with. And it's one of those games also where it doesn't have a ton of rules. It doesn't bog itself down with subset action 7.3 if player pawn enters, space X, then refer to Appendix 3. You know, it's got 4 actions and 1 roll of a die in a turn, and it's just a heck of a lot of fun. So there you go. That is Sabotiles of Hexote. If you have any questions about the game, please ask away. I'll be happy to answer those to the best of my ability. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to watch this video, and until next time, I am the Undead Viking, and I'm telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. Alright, bye-bye.